Hello everybody, this is ManuS and welcome back to the next episode of Eternal News. Today with more spoiler articles. This time the Insignias changing the balance of power article from 2 days ago that I didn't quite have the time to cover yet. So it's time that we catch up on it. So before we get to it, you know the drill. Hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification icon if you haven't yet, and please consider whitelisting eternaltitans.com and YouTube on your adblock to help support our content. Alright, let's take a look. Okay, so the article spoils a cycle of new duels that is pretty amazing. They basically want to push single and dual faction again in the new set after the last set has heavily promoted tri-faction stuff. So yeah, we're getting this really cool dual cycle that basically is just like banners or seats, except that it has a different condition. The condition here is it is depleted if you have any cards from other factions in your deck. So basically if you build a 2-faction deck with these, they're just straight up undepleted duels, no other condition. You don't need a unit in play like with banners, you don't need a sigil in your hand, you don't get a bonus and they are depleted anyway like with crests. This is just straight up turn 1 double influence. And that's a particularly big deal because we have some cards that cost 1 and double influence, like for example Raptor. And now we have Felon Insignia, so we have up to 8 ways to play turn 1 Felon Raptor, which is pretty cool. Unfortunately we don't get all 10, we only get 5, so that means, for example, no turn 1 Nomad for Recano yet. But Combre Insignia, so that means turn 1 Alessi, potentially, if that's something that people want to do. Depends a bit on what is in the set. But yeah, these are amazing. They allow for a bunch of really cool options in terms of power base building. You can either go for like 16 duels and 9 sigils in a 25 power base for a 2-faction deck, and then add like favors or seek powers or that sort of stuff. In addition, you could also do something like don't play sigils and seats at all, run 12 duels, crests, banners, insignias, and then add 4 of each waystone, which brings you up to like 20 power. Then you add 4 diplomatic seal, 21, and then you have like 1 power left where you can add whatever, maybe a single sigil, maybe a single seat, maybe a tactic, probably a tactic, a standard, or a monument. So yeah, there are like some really cool options. You can also go like build 2-color decks that are basically mono faction with a heavy splash of like single, a bunch of single influence cards, or even a couple of like dual influence cards at higher cost, by just going like 16 duels, 1 sigil of the secondary color and 8 of the other one, and then like 4 seek power, and suddenly you have like 21 sources of your secondary color with only 1 actual sigil. So you can even play the new 5 influence 5 drops and stuff like that, and Marionette Cross and so on in a 2-faction deck, which is pretty cool actually. So yeah, there are a couple of really cool things. These are super powerful and super important and gonna drastically change the metagame and will spawn new decks. I'm really excited to work with these. Hope you guys are too. Then yeah, we already talked about Seal of Devotion. That's like additional mono-color support. They generally want to release more mono-color support. I still don't think this is relevant enough, honestly. Since keep in mind, if you're, for example, ramping towards like a 5 influence 5 drop, swapping this any turn before turn 6 will basically put you behind on that, and that makes it not that impressive really, even though it's nice to be able to like cycle through power later. But maybe it sees some play because it's definitely a powerful effect, but the cost is pretty high, I would say. Next we have another one of the coins. Another pretty good one, like the coins look really strong. This one puts a 1/1 Wisp into play, which is pretty strong because it's a 1/1 that is put into play immediately. It's kind of like an Ember Waystone without, instead of the like a Granite Waystone, that doesn't put the unit in hand, but puts it in play, but comes depleted. So it's kind of like the same as playing your Waystone and using the power to play the Grenadine, except that instead of needing a lot of influence, you just need to attack, so you can do this way earlier, like you can do it on turn 2 and stuff like that. So it's at a similar power level as Granite Waystone with like different up and down sides, but pretty cool all in all. Also because you can play it in less influence heavy decks, unlike Waystone, but you get deprived of the synergy of putting like the created 1/1 into your market like with Waystone. Sorry about that. Definitely interesting what the other 3 will be doing, but the coins are pretty sweet. And last but not least, the 5 other merchants, the 5 other smugglers. Here they are. This is basically what I guessed it would be. I assumed it would be possibly a 2/2 or 2/3 charge, and it is a 2/3 charge, so not too surprised about that one. It's pretty solid actually, like it's better than a fair share of the smugglers we currently have, I think. So that's a big deal. Also, it is a charge unit in praxis for something like Charge Rod, so could definitely see like even a 2-faction Charge Rod deck being explored with the new set with the help of this. The downside is, in a Charge Rod deck, you kind of want a regular market with Time Merchant to have 7 rods. Annex Smuggler doesn't let you do that, but what you can do is you can play Annex Smuggler and Auralian Merchant and just put 1 rod in the market. That means you have 0 rods in your main that you can have in your opening hand, clogging up your hand, or messing up your rod hits by hitting a rod instead of a charge unit, and you can just put 1 rod in your market and then put the rest of your deck full of like charge units and a bit of interaction and ramp. So yeah, looks definitely interesting, and the fact that it has charge comes in handy there. Then we have Pearl Abbey Smuggler. It's a 2/1, and when you play a spell, Pearl Abbey Smuggler gets +1/+1. So it obviously goes pretty well with Alessi and seems like a great fit in an Alessi deck. So we might see a resurgence of some Alessi-based proactive combo deck, which is sweet. My guess was more something along the lines of like a 2/2 with Empower +1/+1 this turn. This is actually better, a 2/1 that grows permanently. Pretty strong. Another new smuggler that is arguably better than most smugglers we have right now after they have been changed. I'd say similar power level as the current version of the Illusion Smuggler, which is pretty good because the Illusion Smuggler is probably the most powerful still of the merchants after the smugglers, after they all have been nerfed in the right deck, and this is the same kind. It's really powerful in the right deck. Next we have Rime Conclave Smuggler. The Hero Smuggler, it's a 3-power 3/2, which is pretty solid. Like most smugglers we have right now are like 2/2s, even merchants, or like 2/1s that have like double damage and stuff. But having 2 toughness and still more than 2 attack is a fairly big deal. Part of why I think Ixtun's merchant is one of the better merchants right now. And yeah, it has a pretty nice ability. It has Onslaught, so that's a bit surprising in a way for Huru, given that Huru isn't that aggressive and proactive. So you have to have like a 2-drop, because there's not a whole lot of 1-drops you want. Attack with it and then play this. But yeah, with Onslaught, you and Rime Conclave Smuggler get Aegis, which is pretty sweet, and makes this particularly nice in... yeah, like, the thing is, it's a bit weird actually. This would technically be nice in Hero Control, because the Phase Aegis is great there, but triggering the Onslaught is not that easy. But it's not impossible, because you have a bunch of units, and you have Relic Weapons, so you can just play like Rune Hammer on 4, attack. If it doesn't die, you just attack on turn 5, and then play the Smuggler, get Phase Aegis, and Aegis on the Smuggler. So yeah, all in all, pretty nice, solid stats. If you ever get the Aegis off, it's amazing. So this seems like kind of a conditional throwback to the old Yennefer Merchant, and Huru mid-range decks will be super excited about this guy, and like 3-faction Huru-based mid-ranges like TJP mid-range, for example. So yeah, pretty nice card, one of the better merchants of, one of the better new smugglers. Next we have Blight Pass Smuggler. That card's a bit of a disappointment, I think. I don't see Feln taking enough advantage of the Berserk here. Sure, you could like Rapid Shot and deal 10 or whatever, but ultimately it's a defensive unit with an offensive ability, so you usually either don't make the most out of the stats or you don't make the most out of Berserk, making it kind of like one thing or the other. Either you get a 1/4 or you get a Berserk body with barely any relevant stats. If the Berserk matters, the main relevant stat is your attack, especially if you plan on like comboing with it, like Rapid Shot or whatever, then your toughness doesn't really matter, and having the minimum of one attack is kind of lackluster there. So yeah, I think the card will be more relevant as a 1/4 than as a Berserk body, but to be fair, a 1/4 Smuggler in a more defensive deck seems nice, like in a more defensive Feln mid-range deck or a Feln controlling deck. This definitely seems like a nice blocker. Having a Smuggler that actually can block, unlike most other Smugglers, especially the 2/2 Smugglers, basically don't block anything well these days, because almost all the like good constructed units have like 3 or more toughness or some form of evasion or something like quick draw to make sure they don't trade with like a 2/2. And last but not least, we have Sen Waste Smuggler, the Stonescar Smuggler, being a 3/2, pretty important here to have a realistic chance to get into the Stonescar deck that me and my team were playing mostly for this ECQ. But yeah, all in all, pretty decent. I don't think we know what Shift does yet. I maybe have missed it, but as far as I know, Shift has not been revealed yet and might be revealed like maybe tomorrow or something as one of the last mechanics before the set comes out later this week. But yeah, since Shift almost certainly is going to be something positive, I think the merchant is going, the Smuggler is going to be pretty decent. Like being a 3/2 alone is pretty decent at this point, given the power level of merchants and smugglers. And Shift adding something valuable potentially to that makes this pretty nice. I think the Feln one is like the weakest. The practice one isn't super great, but has nice implications for what I mentioned. And the Huru, Ombre, and Stonescar are probably the best 3, but I'm not quite sure. We will see. Anyway, pretty great. They look better than I expected them to look after the recent nerfs to the other Smugglers, and I could totally see that they might have to tone these down as well at some point, which would be a bit hilarious, because one would assume that they had toned them down already, given that they had to tone down 1 or 2 the other Smugglers, at some of them even twice. So yeah, we'll see how it plays out. They're definitely not as conservative as I would have expected them to be. The article also mentions that they wanted to support mono-faction stuff and 2-faction stuff, with this set pushing away from the like 3-faction good stuff piles, and that they will at some point certainly revisit the other 5 tri-faction combinations, but they don't want to keep things too predictable and formulaic, so the set will not bring us the other half of the 3-faction sets or whatever, which is fine. Actually kind of good to keep things a bit different and changing, rather than just kind of make things too predictable and kind of play out the same in different colors. So I like that. In general, I'm pretty excited for the new set. Lots of cool, interesting things going on. Seems like a nice paradigm shift coming as well. So I'm excited to try the new stuff, and you can likely catch me live if I can manage on Thursday after the set dropped, and we'll all figure it out together. As usual, I'll be back with the other spoilers from the second community spoiler batch in the next 1 or 2 days to make sure we catch up on that before the set drops. And yeah, let me know in the comments what you think. As usual, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. turn on the notification icon to not miss out on all the new content regarding the new set. Hit the like button if you enjoy it, share it with your friends, and please consider whitelisting YouTube and Eternal Titans on your adblock. That would really help us a lot. That's it again for this time for me. I'm your host ManuS. I thank you for watching. Bye.